The first snow of December fell, quietly over Boston as I stood on the front steps of the mansion I had called home for 3 years. My newborn daughter, Lily, slept peacefully against my chest, wrapped in a pink blanket the hospital had given us just 4 days earlier. I still hadn't recovered from childbirth. My body ached. My stitches hurt every time I moved. And yet there I was, homeless. The front door slammed behind me. My husband, Ethan Hawthorne, heir to one of the largest real estate empires in Massachusetts, didn't even bother looking at me. Instead, his lawyer handed me a thick envelope. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Hawthorne." I laughed. "Mrs. Hawthorne? Not anymore." Inside the envelope were divorce papers, along with a single check, $5,000. After 3 years of marriage, after giving birth to his daughter, after sacrificing my career, $5,000. I stared at Ethan. "You can't be serious." He adjusted the cuffs of his designer coat. "My lawyers are very serious." "What about Lily?" His eyes finally moved to the tiny baby sleeping in my arms. "DNA results will determine that." I felt like the ground disappeared beneath me. "You think she isn't yours?" He didn't answer. Instead, another woman stepped into the doorway. Tall, beautiful, perfect blonde hair, wearing one of my silk robes, the robe Ethan had bought me for our anniversary. She wrapped her arm around his waist. "Ethan," she whispered sweetly, "it's freezing outside." He smiled at her, the smile I hadn't seen in months. "I'll be right in." Then he looked back at me. "You should leave." The door closed, and just like that, my marriage was over. An elderly taxi driver pulled over. "You need a ride, sweetheart." I nodded because I couldn't trust my voice. He helped me into the back seat. "Where to?" I realized I had nowhere to go. No parents. My mother had died when I was 19. My father passed away 2 years later. The only apartment I had owned had been sold after Ethan insisted we move into his mansion. I don't know." The driver looked at Lily, then at the tears streaming down my face. "You can figure it out on the way." We ended up at a small motel near Logan Airport. The driver secretly paid for 2 nights. When I tried to stop him, he smiled. 30 years ago, someone helped my wife when she had our first baby. He winked. "I'm just returning the favor." That night, I cried until morning, not because I had lost Ethan, but because Lily deserved better. She deserved a father. She deserved a home. She deserved love. I kissed her tiny forehead. "I promise you something?" She yawned. "I'll never let anyone make us feel worthless again." The next morning, reality arrived. I had exactly $5,247 from Ethan, $247 in my bank account. That was all. A motel room, a newborn, no job, no family, no future. Then my phone buzzed. "Unknown number," I answered. "Emily?" "Yes?" "This is Margaret Collins from St. Anne's Hospital." My heart raced. "Is Lily okay?" "No, dear. Everything is fine." She paused. "I found something you left behind." "I didn't leave anything." "You did." "My business card." I frowned. "My business card?" "Marketing director. Bright Spark Media." I had forgotten. Before marrying Ethan, I had built one of Boston's fastest-growing digital marketing agencies. I sold my shares after marriage because Ethan believed wives shouldn't work. Margaret continued. "My nephew owns a small startup. They desperately need someone with your experience. I know you just had a baby, but would you consider meeting him?" I almost laughed. I hadn't slept. I had milk stains on my sweater. My entire life had collapsed. And someone wanted to interview me. Maybe, just maybe, life wasn't finished with me yet. I looked down at Lily. She opened her tiny eyes for the first time that morning. I smiled. This is where our real story begins. The startup was called North Harbor Digital. It operated out of a tiny brick building in Cambridge. Nothing like Ethan's billion-dollar headquarters. No marble floors. No luxury cars. No private elevators. Just 12 employees, old desks, and people who actually smiled. As I walked in carrying Lily's car seat, everyone looked up. A young man hurried over. "You must be Emily." "I'm Daniel Collins, Margaret's nephew." He couldn't have been older than 32. He shook my hand before kneeling beside Lily. "And who is this beautiful little lady?" "Lily." He smiled. "Welcome to the team." I blinked. "The interview isn't over." Daniel laughed. "The interview ended the second my aunt told me your name. I've read every campaign you created before you disappeared. You doubled BrightSpark's revenue in 2 years. You don't need to prove yourself. You just need a chance." Those words nearly broke me. A chance. No one had offered me one in years. The salary wasn't huge, but it was enough. Enough for a small apartment. Enough for daycare later. Enough to survive. I accepted immediately. The following months became a blur. Sleepless nights. Feeding Lily every few hours. Working from home while she napped. Joining meetings with a baby in my lap. Some clients complained. Others smiled. Daniel defended me every single time. If she delivers results, I don't care if she's holding a baby. And I did deliver. Within 6 months, North Harbor Digital landed its biggest contract ever, a regional retail chain worth nearly $2 million. Everyone celebrated. Daniel handed me the bonus check. $25,000. I stared at it in disbelief. "I've never had this much money." "You earned every penny," he replied. Meanwhile, across the city, things weren't going so well for Ethan. One evening, I received a call from an old friend who still worked for Hawthorne. Developments. "You didn't hear it from me?" "Hear what?" "The woman Ethan left you for." "Vanessa." "She emptied several company accounts." "What?" "Millions." "She disappeared." I sat silently. Apparently, the glamorous blonde wasn't just beautiful. She was running an elaborate financial scam. Several executives resigned. Investors panicked. News stations covered the scandal nonstop. For the first time, the untouchable Ethan Hawthorne looked vulnerable. I wasn't happy. Not exactly. But I also didn't feel sorry for him. He had believed appearances over loyalty. He had trusted lies over family. Those were his choices. 3 years passed. Then 4. North Harbor Digital exploded in growth. We opened offices in New York, Chicago, Dallas, and Seattle. Daniel promoted me to Chief Operating Officer, then offered company shares. "You helped build this. You deserve ownership." I accepted. Those shares would eventually become worth millions. Lily started kindergarten. She was bright, funny, curious about everything. One afternoon, she asked the question I had dreaded for years. "Mommy, where's my daddy?" I took a deep breath. "He's somewhere else." Did he not love me? The words pierced my heart. I hugged her tightly. "No, sweetheart. Some adults make terrible mistakes, but none of them are your fault." She nodded quietly, then smiled. "That's okay. I have you." I cried after she fell asleep that night. A week later, I received an invitation. The Boston Business Excellence Gala, North Harbor. Digital had been nominated as one of the fastest-growing companies in New England. Daniel insisted I attend. "You've earned this." I wore a navy blue evening gown. Nothing flashy, just elegant. As I walked into the ballroom, hundreds of executives turned toward the entrance. And then I saw him, Ethan, standing near the stage. His expensive confidence was gone. His hair carried streaks of gray. Dark circles surrounded his eyes. For the first time, he looked ordinary. His eyes met mine. He froze. The champagne glass slipped from his hand and shattered across the marble floor. He whispered only one word. "Emily." The ballroom fell silent. Executives looked from Ethan to me. 5 years earlier, I had left his mansion carrying a newborn and one small suitcase. Tonight, I walked in as the chief operating officer and part owner of one of the fastest-growing marketing companies in America. Life had a strange sense of humor. Ethan slowly made his way toward me. "Emily." His voice trembled. "You look incredible." I offered a polite smile. "Thank you." Nothing more. No anger, no tears, no affection. Just 2 strangers exchanging formalities. For a moment, he looked disappointed. Perhaps he had expected me to scream, or cry, or tell him how much he had ruined my life. Instead, I had nothing left to say, because he no longer had the power to hurt me. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. I glanced toward Daniel, who gave me a reassuring nod. 5 minutes. We stepped onto a quiet balcony overlooking the Boston skyline. Snowflakes drifted through the cold night air. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "I owe you an apology." I folded my arms. "You owe our daughter one first." His eyes filled with regret. "I know. I was wrong. I believed Vanessa. She told me you were seeing another man. She forged emails, fake hotel receipts, even fake DNA paperwork. I believed every word." I looked at him calmly. "You didn't trust your own wife." He lowered his head. "I know. And that's something I'll regret for the rest of my life." He explained everything. After Vanessa disappeared with millions of dollars, federal investigators uncovered years of fraud. She had targeted wealthy businessmen before. Ethan wasn't her first victim, just her biggest. The scandal destroyed investor confidence. Several lawsuits followed. Banks demanded immediate repayment of loans. One by one, his properties were sold. The Hawthorne empire collapsed. I lost almost everything. I stared into the snowy city lights. I lost everything first. He couldn't argue. Then he asked the question I already knew was coming. "Can I meet Lily?" The words hung in the cold air. I took a slow breath. She deserves to know who her father is. Hope flickered across his face. "But," his smile faded, "you don't get to walk back into her life because you're lonely. You earn that privilege. Slowly, patiently, and only if she wants it." He nodded immediately. "I understand." "No," I corrected him gently. "I don't think you do." The gala host announced the award ceremony. We returned inside. North Harbor Digital won Company of the Year. Daniel invited me onto the stage. As I accepted the crystal trophy, hundreds of people applauded. I thanked my team. I thanked Daniel. Then I said something no one expected. 5 years ago, someone told me I was worth nothing. They looked at a young mother holding her newborn daughter and saw a burden. I stand here tonight because one person chose kindness instead of judgment. I looked toward Daniel. He gave me a chance. So if you ever meet someone who's struggling, don't ask why they're falling. Ask how you can help them stand. The audience rose in a standing ovation. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ethan wiping away tears. Not because he had lost his fortune, but because he finally understood. He hadn't lost his company. He had lost his family. 3 weeks after the gala, my phone rang. It was Ethan. "I found something," he said quietly. "What?" "My father's journals." I almost hung up. "I think you should read them." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him. Not alone. I asked Daniel to come with me. We met at a quiet coffee shop overlooking Boston Harbor. Ethan looked exhausted. He placed a worn leather journal on the table. My father wrote everything. I slowly opened it. Most pages contained business notes. Until one sentence caught my attention. "Never let pride cost you the people who truly love you. I almost lost your mother because I believed a liar. Don't repeat my mistake, Ethan." My hands froze. Another page. "Emily is the best thing that's ever happened to my son. If he ever lets her go, he'll regret it forever." I looked up. "Your father knew?" Ethan nodded. "He warned me." I ignored him. His voice cracked. "I thought I knew better." Then he handed me another envelope. "This belongs to Lily." Inside was a trust document. $5 million? My eyes widened. What is this? My father created it before he died. He wanted it to be hers on her 18th birthday. I was too ashamed to tell you. I carefully slid the envelope back. "This money belongs to Lily. But understand something. It doesn't buy you a relationship with her." "I know." That weekend, I finally told Lily the truth. She was almost 6 years old. We sat together on the porch as the autumn leaves drifted across our yard. "There is something I need to tell you." She looked up from her coloring book. "Is it about my dad?" I nodded. "Yes." I explained everything as gently as I could. Not the betrayal. Not the cheating. Not the lies. Children don't need adult pain. They need honesty they can understand. I loved your father. He made a terrible mistake, but that mistake wasn't because of you. Lily was quiet for a long time. Then she asked, "Does he still love me?" I answered truthfully, "I believe he does." She looked toward the sunset. "Can I meet him?" My heart tightened. This wasn't my decision anymore. It was hers. I smiled softly. "If that's what you want?" She nodded. "I want to know him." The meeting took place in a public park. Ethan arrived 30 minutes early. He looked more nervous than any businessman facing a billion-dollar deal. He carried no expensive gifts. No designer toys, just a small teddy bear. When Lily walked toward him, he dropped to one knee. "Hi?" His voice barely came out. "I'm Ethan." Lily smiled politely. "I'm Lily." Neither of them knew what to say. Finally, she held out her tiny hand. "My mommy says people deserve a second chance if they really mean they're sorry." Tears instantly filled Ethan's eyes. "I am sorry. So sorry." Without warning, Lily hugged him. A small child's hug. Pure. Innocent. Completely undeserved. Ethan broke down crying in the middle of the park. People walking by stared. He didn't care. For the first time in 6 years, he held his daughter, and he realized exactly what his pride had stolen from him. As I watched from a nearby bench, Daniel quietly sat beside me. "You okay?" he asked. I smiled through tears. "I'm finally free." 6 months passed. Slowly, carefully, Ethan became part of Lily's life. He never missed a scheduled visit. Never arrived late. Never tried to buy her love. Instead, he listened. He colored pictures with her. Helped her learn to ride a bicycle. Read bedtime stories during video calls. For the first time, he was becoming the father he should have been years ago. But I kept my distance. Some wounds heal. They don't disappear. One rainy afternoon, Daniel knocked on my office door. "You have visitors." I looked outside. 3 men in expensive suits stood in the reception area. One introduced himself. "I'm Richard Lawson. We represent Hawthorne Holdings." I frowned. I thought the company was gone. It almost was. He smiled politely. "But we recently secured new investors. We'd like to make you an offer." I raised an eyebrow. "What kind of offer?" "We want North Harbor Digital to handle our global marketing." I nearly laughed. 5 years earlier, they wouldn't even let me walk through their front door. Now, they wanted my company to save theirs. The contract was worth nearly $80 million over 5 years. Daniel looked at me. "It's your decision." I studied the proposal, then quietly closed the folder. No. Every executive around the table looked stunned. Richard blinked. "I'm sorry?" I said no. "You don't even want to negotiate?" I smiled calmly. No amount of money is worth working with people who once believed I was disposable. Silence filled the room. This was my revenge. Not destroying Ethan, not humiliating him, simply proving he needed me far more than I would ever need him. That evening, Ethan called. "I heard what happened. You turned down the contract." "I did. You could have made a fortune. I already have everything I need." He was quiet. "You know, if our lives had been different." I gently interrupted him. "Our lives were shaped by our choices. And yours had consequences. I know." A month later, Daniel invited Lily and me to dinner. After dessert, he looked unusually nervous. Then he stood, reached into his jacket, and pulled out a small velvet box. My heart skipped. "Emily, the happiest years of my life began the day you walked into that little office, carrying Lily. You taught me what strength looks like. You taught me that success means nothing if you have no one to share it with." He knelt. "I don't want to replace anyone. I just want to spend the rest of my life loving you." "And Lily? Will you marry me?" The restaurant became silent. Every eye turned toward us. I couldn't speak. Before I answered, a tiny voice shouted, "Say yes, Mommy." Everyone laughed. Lily was standing beside Daniel, grinning from ear to ear. Tears filled my eyes. I looked at Daniel, then at my daughter, then whispered, "Yes." The restaurant erupted in applause. A year later, our wedding took place on a quiet lakeside surrounded by close friends and family. No reporters, No billionaires, no extravagant mansion, just love. As I walked down the aisle, I noticed someone standing near the back. Ethan. He wasn't invited to the ceremony itself, but Lily had asked if he could watch from a distance. He respected every boundary. He smiled as our daughter scattered flower petals down the aisle. When our eyes briefly met, he simply nodded, not with regret this time, but with acceptance. He finally understood something that money could never buy. Love isn't guaranteed. Trust isn't inherited, and family isn't something you own. It's something you protect. Years later, Lily graduated from high school as valedictorian. She stood at the podium and smiled. I have two fathers. One gave me life. The other showed me how to live it. Both Ethan and Daniel wiped away tears. After the ceremony, Lily hugged each of them. Then she took my hand. Mom, you always told me that kindness is stronger than revenge. I smiled. I did. She grinned. Then why do people call this your revenge story? I laughed softly. Because the greatest revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's building a life so beautiful. They can only wish they had never let you go. And somewhere in the crowd, Ethan smiled through tears. Not because he had won me back, but because he finally understood the cost of the choice he made all those years ago. The end. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support helps us continue creating heartfelt stories that inspire hope, healing, and lasting love. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next story.